the year. And it's all about plant-based for health. So this is based on our campaign that we're running this January in line with Veganuary, but we've kind of adapted it to make it healthcare specific and make it our own. So yeah, just to let you know, this will be recorded as well, so that we can share it on our YouTube for anyone that can't make it today. So for anyone that's not made it to a webinar hosted by us before, I'm Georgia. I'm from MBT's sustainability team, and we work very closely as well with the team at UHBW as well. And then we've got Sam, who leads over us all to make one super massive sustainability team that is hopefully going to do lots of great work with MBT and UHBW and the wider ICS as well. So just to start off with, we're going to have a little look at what does it actually mean to be plant-based, especially because there's lots of words that we hear floating about in terms of plant-based diets. We have vegan, we hear vegetarian. So I'm just going to quickly go through what we actually mean when we're speaking about a plant-based diet. So the British I can't even say dietitians, but the British Dietitians Association define a plant-based diet as a diet that's based on foods that comes from plants with few or no ingredients that come from animals. We'll look at this in contrast to vegan, which is a plant-based diet avoiding all animal foods such as meat, dairy, eggs, and honey, as well as avoiding animal-derived materials and products tested on animals and places that use animals for entertainment as well. So we're kind of coming at this through a healthcare lens. So we've chosen to focus on promoting a plant-based diet. We think this feels a bit more inclusive as it allows for people who may struggle to go completely vegan on medical grounds to also feel that they can give it a go. And also by not asking you to cut out animal products completely, it kind of feels a bit more accessible, a bit less scary. I know that the term vegan can sometimes put people off a little bit and has certain connotations. So we're kind of hoping to promote that doing a bit is better than doing nothing at all. So just by trying to go plant-based, reducing a little bit of your animal consumption, you definitely can make a difference. And it's just less scary and less intimidating than cutting everything out completely. So what food can you actually eat on a plant-based diet? So this is a plant-based adaptation of Public Health England's Eat Well guide. So animal products have been removed from the diagram. This is guidance for eating well, but people on a plant-based diet obviously also need a treat once in a while. So while we've got our Eat Well food, so we've got all your fruit and veg there. You've got your whole grains, you've got brown bread, brown rice, potatoes, which is key because as a vegan myself, potatoes make up a massive part of my diet, and plant-based milks. And yeah, while it's not necessarily mentioned in this Eat Well guide and is a little less recommended, there's lots of plant-based meat and dairy alternatives that can make it a lot easier to switch into a plant-based diet. So whether this be plant-based mince that you make into a chili, plant-based cheeses, it just makes that switch a whole lot easier because you're not completely going cold turkey on it all. Even though these might not be as good as some of the alternatives, especially with cheeses, the plant-based meats, it is insane what they've done now to make them so much like the actual thing. So recently, another one that's come about is the Planetary Health Diet, and this is a flexitarian diet, which is largely based on plant-based foods, but also includes a modest amount of fish, meat, and dairy as well. So kind of similar to a plant-based diet, but just using this term instead. So the planetary health refers to the health of human civilization and the state of the natural systems on which it depends. And this is a concept that's put forth a few years ago by the Rockefeller Foundation, Lancet Commission on Planetary Health to transform the field of public health. So this field has traditionally focused on the health of human populations without considering natural systems. So this is kind of trying to bring it all together and show how we treat the natural world also affects human health as well. And so the Eat Lancet Commission builds up the concept of this and puts forth the new term planetary health diet to highlight the critical role that diet plays in linking human health and environmental sustainability as well. And so, yeah, these guys are looking at the need to integrate these often separate agendas into a common global agenda for food system transformation and to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and also reach the Paris Agreement goals that we're set as well. So why go plant-based for health? Well, I'm going to kick off with the environmental side because that's probably where, as a sustainability team, our knowledge lies. But I'm actually going to pass it over to David Attenborough to talk about this to start with because he's got some very empowering and motivation views in it, I think. So here we go. Yeah, thanks, David. So historically, it's been a little bit of I think people felt a bit scared to talk about animal agriculture and food systems in terms of climate change, but it's really great to see that in a lot of David's documentaries and a lot of other reports going around today, there's definitely something that's been addressed. So yeah, as David Attenborough was saying, land use is a massive issue when it comes to animal agriculture. So half of the world's habitable land is used for agriculture, and more than 3/4 of this is used for livestock production. So then when we talk about this livestock production, we're talking about raising animals, including croplands for animal feed, pasture and grazing as well. And experts say that using this much land to grow feed solely for livestock is wasteful because animals are inefficient converters of calories, and that growing animal, human edible crops on that land would be much more efficient and would actually provide more total food for the population. Another thing is when people talk about plant-based diets, there's often an argument that, as again David Attenborough mentioned, that soy production uses a lot of land. But actually, there was a report that came out that in 2019, 75% of the soy imported by the UK was actually used for animal feed. So this would also be reduced massively if people stopped eating so much meat too. So animal agriculture is also a massive contributor to greenhouse gas emissions as well. So the focus on limiting greenhouse gas emissions often tends to be with carbon dioxide, hence our carbon net zero targets. But when it comes to animal agriculture, it's methane that we're looking at. And so over a timescale of 100 years, methane is actually 28 times more powerful than CO2. And it's one of the largest sources of global methane emissions is from animal agriculture, specifically cattle. So you can see here how much impact greenhouse gases and food actually have on our global emissions. So 1/4 of global emissions come from food, with more than half of food emissions coming from animal products and half of all farmed animal emissions coming from beef and lamb. This is why it's often said that when you're thinking about going plant-based, it's actually reducing that red meat intake that is key. So yeah, plant-based is one of the top ways you can reduce your carbon footprint, and dietary shifts could contribute to up to 1/5 of the mitigation needed to hold warming below 2 degrees, which is what that Paris Agreement is holding us to at the moment. But yeah, this is plant-based for health, and so we're always going back to how these sustainability impacts can actually affect your health as well. So it can reduce risk of heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes when compared to less healthy dietary patterns. And it also has beneficial effects on risk of disease by lowering blood pressure, reducing blood cholesterol, and promoting a healthy body weight as well. So this is all taken into account that you're having a balanced plant-based diet and you're not just eating processed foods. And like I say, like McDonald's and Burger King and all of these places now are selling plant-based foods, but if you're relying solely on that, then it's not going to give you the outcomes that you want when it comes to your health. You might have also seen there's a new TV program on Netflix. It's called You Are What You Eat, a Twin Experiment, and it's a recent Stanford medicine-led trial of identical twins comparing vegan and omnivore diets. So one twin would go on a healthy, balanced omnivore diet, and one would go vegan. And they found that this could overall improve cardiovascular health in as little as 8 weeks, which is quite crazy, but I definitely recommend going and watching that if you haven't yet, because some of the findings of what a plant-based diet can do are super interesting. And this has come from a report that came out about 2 days ago, and it said that if everyone in England switched to a plant-based diet, the NHS could save around 6.7 billion a year. With fully plant-based diets could result in 2.1 million fewer cases of disease across England. This isn't saying that everyone should go plant-based again. This is not possible. We're not expecting everyone to be able to do this, but even a partial uptake in plant-based diets could see a sizable benefit for the NHS. So for every 1 million people who became vegan, the study found the NHS could benefit from an estimated 112 million savings in healthcare costs. So when it feels like it's just you making these changes, it's not. If everyone comes together and does, it could make a massive difference for our healthcare systems and for us in the NHS. So some tips for going plant-based, because as much as all these benefits are great, you want to know how to do it. So this is where I kind of can help out, because I actually am plant-based. I've been plant-based for about 7 years now, and experienced firsthand how to make that shift and how it's benefited me. But it's also good to hear from people who actually have that scientific and clinical background as well. So we actually spoke to 2 of NPT's dietitians that follow a plant-based diet, and we asked them what they thought would be some useful tips about going plant-based. So one of them said they could, how about incorporating one meal or one a day or a week into having no meat and less dairy? So meat-free Mondays, initiatives like that are quite popular for trying to just slowly switch it out. Another thing you could do is try to incorporate beans and lentils instead of meat into a meal. So I know that I think it's called the 50-50 approach, where it's where you make a meal, it could be 50% animal product and then 50% beans or lentils. So this is a really good way of just slowly cutting it out and introducing new ingredients as well. If you're unsure about a plant-based diet, there's also loads of websites and places you can go for information that's all from clinicians and dietitians, which is really useful. So yeah, we've already talked about some of these websites here. And they talk specifically about the different vitamins and nutrients you need to get and where to get them from as well. Another thing to do is consider fortified foods such as cereals for additional iron, and also be mindful of getting enough protein from alternative sources as well. So again, this is where beans come into it. Beans are, if you if you don't like beans, eating a plant-based diet is probably going to be pretty difficult for you. Yeah, final tip is there's some really good websites and resources online at the moment for getting recipes, and it's not all about the science behind it. It's not all about these are the benefits, this is why you should do it. It's just great for finding inspiration for food that you want to eat every day. So the BBC Good Food website, and there's Mob, which has the Bunch platform, which is really good. And there's also loads and loads of people on Instagram and social media. If you just type in plant-based recipes, so much will come up, and it's all super good. There's from healthy lunch meals to takeaway meals when you just need that little bit of something that's not so healthy. And there's also loads of really great recipe books as well, such as the Green Roasting Tin, where it's minimal effort. You're chucking everything in the tin, you're putting it in the oven, which is great for, I guess, people working in healthcare that don't actually have as much time to commit to making these recipes as well. So how can you get involved with our campaign? So you can go plant-based at work. You can choose the plant-based option in our canteen or restaurant. At MBT, we're really lucky because we've got our infamous £1 jacket potato offer. So you can get your £1 jacket potato, your beans for lunch, and that's you sorted, plant-based meal. We also offer free dairy-free milks as well in all of our cafes at MBT. I'm not sure about UHBW, but yeah, you can always try those as well. The difference in land use and water use between dairy milks and plant-based milks is crazy as well. So it's definitely worth researching that. Yeah, so you can try and cook a plant-based meal as well. So try substituting beef for lentils, and then bring these leftovers in for lunch as well is a really good way of trying to be waste-free and eat just more sustainably in general, especially as well if maybe the plant-based options that you're open to aren't exactly what you want in your restaurants and cafes. And yeah, we've talked about dairy-free milk. And then you can do some research. There's loads beyond what we're talking about here, and there's loads of studies online that you can look into about transitioning to a plant-based diet, as well as recipe inspiration. And then you can speak to your colleagues. So I think part of it, sometimes people are a little bit scared of actually telling people they're plant-based or they're vegan because of kind of the backlash that you get. But I think if you start normalizing these conversations, encouraging people to try these recipes, just sharing that you cooked something really nice and someone being like, oh, that smells really good while you're at work, then yeah, it opens up these conversations. So another way you can get involved is you can contribute to our staff recipe book. So a massive thing that I found when I went vegan is I fell in love with cooking. So before I was not that into it, and then switched to a plant-based diet, and it opened up opportunities to try loads of different ingredients, bought loads of recipe books, and obviously I'm in a privileged position. I probably have quite a lot of time to do this cooking, but there's loads of places that give you options for shorter, quick meals that you can cook. So what we are doing to make your life a little bit easier, we are going to make a digital recipe book with staff recipe book recipes in, and we would like you to come forward and share your recipes so that we can put them in our digital recipe book and share them with all staff in the ICS. So yeah, please email your recipes to the sustainability inbox. I'll pop the email address in the comments, and by the end of the month we'll get this shared out to you, and it will give you some inspiration, hopefully, of things you can cook. So what's next? Well, last January, New York City Health and Hospitals, which operate the public hospitals and clinics in New York, announced that they would be offering a plant-based dish as their primary option for all inpatients at all 11 of their hospitals, which is obviously a massive shift and a really positive outcome for sustainability in terms of food systems. we're not expecting this to happen to us anytime soon. This is obviously, it was backed massively by their governments and their authorities who are really pushing it. But it kind of gives you some inspiration of what could happen in the future. So this shift for them kind of came about after positive reactions to the system's Meat-Free Mondays initiative. And the meals they brought out are all inspired by flavours of Latin America, Asia, and other places that represent the system's diverse patient population. It found that by August, actually, August 23, food-related greenhouse gases had reduced by 36% because of this initiative. So it just proves that actually these things can be successful. It might be something for us to aspire to, but I think definitely we're keen to see more plant-based options at MBT at UHBW and try and promote this as much as possible. But if you've got any ideas of how we can push this further, totally open to it. And hopefully one day we can be on the same level of New York. So yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Again, contact us if you need to, send in your recipes. Follow us on Twitter, our newsletter, and also please keep entering the Nature and Wellbeing Calendar competition, because that is still going on as well. And I will open up for any questions or try and answer any that you have.